Hello. In this video, we're going to talk about some of the challenges in building generative AI applications, and hopefully this will give you an idea of what we're going to cover in the two-day AI Engineering Essentials course. Now, to begin with, I wanted to give an idea of how the AI stack is evolving. Now, let's take a very simple view of what's happening in the foundational layer. You see a lot of announcements across different companies that are talking about new capabilities with these AI models. Gemini from Google, Llama from Facebook or Meta, Claude AI from Anthropic, and GPT-4o from OpenAI. And there are several other companies that are working on foundational AI models. Now, with these models evolving on a regular basis with retraining, a lot of things that are happening above and below this in this technical AI stack. Now, let's look at first what is happening in the cloud and the hardware layer. Now, due to these foundational layer capabilities, there are new ML platforms and AI services being built as part of cloud offerings. Now, cloud providers are working towards platforms like Vertex AI from Google Cloud that gives you enough capabilities and APIs to build on top of these foundational models. And so there are a lot of innovation happening in the cloud layer, not just on the services that are offered, but also in the networking and storage and compute resources in the way they are brought together in runtime to kind of train and infer from these models. Similarly, hardware companies like NVIDIA are coming up with new versions of their AI chips, both GPUs and then cloud providers coming up with TPUs and so on, right? And in the hardware layer, we see a lot of these cloud providers and hardware layer providers work on ML runtime optimizations, which are very critical for us to run these AI models. Now, this is great. Because of these foundational models, you see a lot of innovation happening in these two layers. But you also see that there's a lot of noise and information out there about new companies and startups in the AI space building libraries, services, and app frameworks. One popular one is LangChain. You also see vector database providers coming up with new versions of their offering. That is essential to be part of the stack so that you can work with this, right? Now, as a result, what is happening is that the application layer is evolving. There's a good chance that you would see new applications built from ground up and then existing applications being rewritten with some of these AI capabilities. Now, we see four flavors of applications. There are companies that are building chatbots, evolving their existing chatbots. There are companies building personal AI models, and some companies investing in tools and copilot for their internal teams, as well as for some of their customers. And there are some investigations around agents that are trying to automate manual processes. Now, this is all great. If you look at it from a stack perspective, if you sit in the application layer and try to look at all the things that are happening below, there's so much happening, and it kind of confuses where to start and how to build a good AI application that leverages some of the best in class services that are offered. Now, you can almost think about two ways of integrating with AI models. One is API based. So you have APIs that are offered by some of these models. Let's say GPT-4o. You write a simple API, you're able to get some response from the model, and then you can build the application. Or the other class of category of integration that involves model customization. You're actually changing the base model to your needs. Now, it could be fine tuning the model for a particular purpose, or you're actually sharing more information about proprietary data and building a stack that has enough context for the model to understand to work on it. So you have this model customization. Now, in both approaches, you need to have careful considerations in the way you actually build the stack. So with API based, one of the main things that you need to really think about is if you're treating these AI models as black box, that's API based, your application might be in trouble because these base models are built in a way that it's learned from public domain data, and there's a good chance that it might not directly work for your application. Now, let me show you a couple of examples. This is a very simple query. It talks about is 9.11 bigger than 9.9, and you see that many LLM models kind of get this wrong. Now, we're showing an example of how Llama 3.1 gave a response, and this is same for other models as well. Now, if you just integrate with API, and build an application that you offer to your customer, you're going to have a lot of frustrating experience for the customer, and it's not ideal for you to build such an application. The same holds for something like a factual query. Who is Sriram from Google? This is I used to work at Google before. It came up with something that is very interesting, that is not true, and you could clearly see that the API based integration model is probably not going to work. Now, the interesting challenge is a lot of developers and a lot of companies who have started integrating with AI models are starting with this approach, and then they're slowly realizing there is a need for model customization and to kind of improve how they actually integrate with these AI models. Now, the big question is, can they be fixed? And the answer is yes, they can, and it requires careful consideration across the stack and how you actually think about it, from concept to actual AI model deployment. So you need to have a clear way of exploring what model you actually pick, why you want to pick that model, why is it that the relevant one for your particular application. You need to build a model pipeline where you either customize your model with RAG or with fine tuning that model. You need to figure out whether you want your own domain specific data sets, and then come up with model evaluation criteria that has high quality model outputs. And then you move on to the production phase where you integrate and build your application. You test that at an application level and then launch it in production. Now, the course is going to focus on how you think about building an application across these 6 stages. And we will divide that into prototype phase and production phase. So, in the prototype phase, we will focus on the first 3 stages, where how do you explore and figure out the right AI model for your application? How do you build a pipeline that is effective? How do you evaluate your model? Now, some of the things that we cover in this phase is not just looking at what model to pick for your application, but actually figure out how you pick the right data, like learn more about the data set, the base model, what data has it used to train that model, as well as like understanding the model evaluation results that they've already published. Here you can see that, say you're building a coding agent, and these are the models that are available for you. You can see the evaluation results show how it varies for these different AI models, and you have to do a more thorough analysis to figure out whether that's the right model to integrate. And similarly, in the early stage, you probably have to evaluate whether you need a domain specific data set. If you're going to fine tune, you obviously need a data set, but you also want to figure out how good the data set should be for you to use for your domain specific application. And then in the prototype phase, we also will cover about pilot testing and user feedback. How do you put the model under test? What are the set of things that you want to evaluate? How do you set up both qualitative testing as well as quantitative testing stack? And then how do you actually set up human evaluations to kind of come up with a good model quality? Then in the course, we will move on to the production phase where we focus on the next 3 phases, where we will continue understanding how we need to add the right guardrails, what AI specific testing we need to do at the application level, not just the model level, and how do you actually qualify that the application is ready to be launched in production. We will also talk about performance issues where we look at how do you optimize for latency as one example, because unlike existing applications, AI models are going to take some time to generate the response, and so we need to figure out where we can optimize some of that, how you actually do that, and these are some of the key criteria you need to think about when we go past the prototype phase. And so we will spend some time on this, touching on these different parts of the processing agents so that you're able to come up with an optimal performance. We will also touch on cost. We'll look at this is very important when you look at production. How do you kind of like think about running these models? How do you tune it? How much of the cost will it incur for these different stages? We'll go deeper into looking at some of the available choices that you can pick. And we'll also cover something about success metrics, about how you pick the right success metric for you to kind of run it in production and then start getting user feedback in production so you can kind of iterate on the model itself. So what you will get out of this course, you'll have a more structured approach. This will be a top-down way of looking at the problem, and it'll cover a lot of material for you to take home so that you're able to build your own application and think across these stacks from a top-down approach, the 6 stages that we talked about. So the first, we'll start with the step-by-step walkthrough of how to build and deploy an AI application. Then we'll analyze a real-world AI application by walking through an example of how you actually take it from an idea stage. And we'll then switch on to, like, we will have production considerations such as building guardrails. How do you actually look at a model and figure out what quality it should be that is required for your application, and the success metric. You'll also get access to boilerplate code for you to build your prototype. If you want to build a code tutor or a calendar and email assistant, how do you go about it? We'll look at a couple of examples, and you can pick the one that you want to build and follow step-by-step instruction to deploy that, your tune model or your RAG model in a platform that we will recommend, and you get it up and running. So this course is going to be intense. It's going to be a 2-day weekend session. So we've curated the material so that it's super relevant to your explorations wherever you are in your exploration. If you're starting from scratch, or if you've already done a prototype and looking at how to take it forward, this will be super helpful because you get an end-to-end view. That's the goal, from a top-down perspective, and you get some hands-on experience that you can use it so that you can get it up and running. If you're interested, this is the course link. It's AI Engineering Essentials. You can scan this barcode so that it'll take you to the link so that you're able to look at more details about the course, as well as like enroll it today. And the course will be on a weekend, September 21st and 22nd, 9 to 5, both days. And I'll be available for taking questions beyond that as well to help you make sure that you have something that is up and running that you can iterate on. So hopefully I would love to see you in the course. If you have any further questions, feel free to message me. I'm happy to answer questions.